On 17th November 1922, the last Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed VI, left Istanbul aboard a British warship, ending a monarchy that has lasted 623 years. So, how did Turkey lose its Sultan, and what did the loss actually cost? That is the question this video will try to answer, and it is harder than it looks because the republic that replaced the House of Osman actually worked, and the costs were still real. The question has a sharp edge in 2026. Turkey is arguing about whether one man should rule beyond his 23rd year in power. President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan has led the country as prime minister and then president since 2003. He is pushing for a new constitution, and his critics read the project as a route around the two-term president limit. That limit already carries a loophole. A third term opens if parliament calls early elections. The main opposition has meanwhile been taken apart in the courts. Ekrem İmamoğlu, the elected mayor of Istanbul and Erdogan's strongest rival, sits in jail. And in May 2026, a court removed the opposition leader Özgür Özel from his post. Critics have called Erdogan a sultan for years, and he has half embraced the jibe. He governs from a palace of more than 1,000 rooms, and in 2020 he restored Hagia Sophia to a mosque. The Republic abolished hereditary rule a century ago, and today its central political argument is about how long its president may stay. A note on the scope before we start. The Ottoman throne was also the seat of the Caliphate. I will treat that strictly as a constitutional question, what the institution was and what its abolition left behind. Start with what the throne was. The House of Osman ruled from 1299 to 1922. From 1517, the Sultan was also Caliph, the nominal head of Sunni Islam, which made Istanbul's throne a dual institution, a monarchy for state and a religious anchor for an entire civilization, joined in a single person. For a Western viewer, the nearest comparison is imagining the British crown and the papacy held by the same man, and then imagining both offices abolished within 16 months of each other. The empire's last century was a long documented decline, and no honest account softens it. The state lost territory in almost every war, and it defaulted on its debts. And under Abdul Hamid II, it carried out the Hamidian massacre of Armenians in the 1890s. There was a constitutional road not taken. The constitution of 1876 was suspended by Abdul Hamid for 3 decades and restored by Young Turk Revolution of 1903. Real power then drifted from palace to the Committee of Union and Progress, the officer politicians who took the empire into the First World War in 1914. The Armenian genocide of 1915 was carried out under their wartime rule, with the dynasty reduced to a rubber stamp. By 1918, the empire was beaten and Istanbul was under Allied occupation, and the dynasty's fate came down to a 36th sultan holding the worst hand of any of them been ever dealt. Mehmed VI played it badly, and his 4 years are the anti-monarchist case in miniature, the strongest argument any Republican in this story ever received from a king. Facing a partitioned empire under the 1920 Treaty of Sèvres, he chose cooperation with the occupying allies. That put him against the nationalist resistance forming in Anatolia under Mustafa Kemal, the future Ataturk. Sultan's governments condemned Kemal to death in absentia, and clerical authorities issued rulings against the nationalists in his name. He bet the throne on the occupiers, and the nationalists won the War of Independence anyways. When the Grand National Assembly in Ankara abolished the Sultanate on 1st of November 1922, its resolution treated the Istanbul government as having lapsed the day it fell under foreign control. In nationalist eyes, the institution had forfeited itself. Just over 2 weeks later, the Sultan was gone on the British warship. Romania's King Michael faced the same choice between occupiers and nation in 1944, and he chose the nation. Decades later, vast crowds in Bucharest mourned him. Mehmed died in exile in Sanremo in 1926, so indebted that local creditors seized his coffin against unpaid bills. The assembly did not initially abolish everything, and what it kept for 16 months matters for the cost question. It separated the Caliphate from the Sultanate and elected Abdülmecid II, a cousin of the post-Sultan, as Caliph, a religious figurehead with no political power. Turkey then ran an experiment nobody had tried before, a republic in all but name, with the reigning Caliph as a kind of spiritual constitutional monarch. Ataturk ended this experiment on 3rd March 1924. The Caliphate was abolished and Law 431 expelled the entire imperial dynasty that same day. The exile was brutal. Around 150 members of House of Osman were put out of country, departing from Siretsi station with travel documents valid for a single year. After they expired, most of them effectively became stateless. The family scattered into poverty across Europe and the Middle East, with documented accounts of princes and princesses reduced to menial work and selling their remaining jewels. Abdülmecid II died in Paris in 1944 and could not be buried in Turkey, finding a grave in Medina a decade later. Female members of the dynasty were permitted to return in the early 1950s, male members only in 1974, a half-century banishment of a family that had reigned for 6 centuries. The Republic has never put an act of 1922 and 1924 or the exile of the family to a vote of its people. Ataturk secured full sovereignty at Lausanne in 1923, where Sèvres had dictated partition. The Republic built a modern state and Romanized the alphabet. Its women received the national vote in 1934, earlier than much of Europe. Turkey became the only full sovereign state to emerge from the old empire's core, and it went on to industrialize and eventually reach multi-party democracy. What did the removal cost even a successful republic? The cost fell in 2 places, and the first is the way republic handled power. The founding formula replaced a dynasty with a guardian state, a single party until 1950, and behind every elected government after that, an army that regarded itself as the constitution's owner. The military removed 4 governments in 4 decades. Turkish military hanged Prime Minister Adnan Menderes after the 1960 coup and forced governments out in 1971 and 1997. After the 1980 coup, It detained hundreds of thousands of people and executed dozens. In 2016, a faction of the army tried again, and roughly 250 people died, stopping it. The Guardian is gone now, broken by Erdoğan himself. What stands in its place is the most concentrated personal rule in the Republic's history, a presidency whose opponents are tried in courts it controls. The sequence ran from Sultan to Guardian army to the current presidency, and each stage held more power than the one before, under the weaker restraint. The office above politics was never replaced, and every faction since has tried to occupy that space. The crown's old role in different hands. Before the second cost, a quick word on how this channel runs. This is a Monarchist channel, and it says so openly. It runs without sponsors and without advertisers, so nobody outside this channel shapes the argument. The case here is that monarchy has been a serious source of stability and legitimacy, and that its loss has often cost more than people expected. If you think this perspective is worth defending, the simplest way to help is to subscribe, so the argument reaches more people who are open to it. And if you want to back it directly, YouTube membership and the Patreon community are both open. Whichever way you choose to help, it counts and it keeps this thing going. Now, the second cost is the one abolition exported. Scrapping the Caliphate in 1924 removed the only widely recognized central institution in Sunni Islam, and nothing has replaced it in a century. The office has been decaying for generations, and no serious historian thinks the Caliphate of 1924 could have policed Sunnis around the world. But a vacant office of that size does not stay harmless. From the movements in 1920s to the terrorists who claimed it in 2014, when the Islamic State's leader declared himself Caliph in Mosul, the empty chair had been standing prize for whoever dares to sit in it. There is no legitimate holder anyone can point to when a fraud claims a title. One development remains: how the Republic now treats the dynasty it expelled. Republican Turkey's founding story cast the Ottomans as the failure that justified everything after, and for decades the dynasty was nearly unmentionable. That taboo is dead. Ottoman costume dramas lead Turkey's cultural exports, and the conquest of Constantinople is commemorated with state pageantry. At the presidential palace, a costumed honor guard drawn from 16 historic Turkic empires greets foreign leaders. Erdogan's movement has spent 2 decades rehabilitating Abdul Hamid II in particular as a pious, wronged modernizer, and his admirers plainly see Erdogan in that portrait. Meanwhile, the actual head of the House of Osman, Harun Osmanglu, a great-grandson of Abdul Hamid II, born in exile in 1932, lives quietly in the background. The family makes no claim, and no restoration movement of any size exists in Turkey. My reading is that the nostalgia is the Republic borrowing monarchy's clothes, because a century on, the state built to replace the sultans finds the sultan's imagery more unifying than its own politics. So, how did Turkey lose its sultan? The empire lost the World War, and the man on the throne sided with the occupiers against the national resistance. A self-inflicting end even sympathetic historians concede. The cost is nuanced here than anywhere else in this story because the Republic succeeded. My conclusion, offered as a judgment rather than a documented fact, is that even the most successful abolition on record left two institutions unreplaceable: the arbiter above Turkish politics and the office above Sunni Islam. Neither gap had been filled by anything except force and ambition since. The question of how power should be held in Turkey is still not settled. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.